Today's topic of conversation is something, very useful. Again, I wish I had known this information previously, and so I've recently had a look at it, investigated the way that everybody does these days. I googled it, and I'm really just summarising the information that is readily available and presented on this topic. But I thought, there's a lot out there. I find it interesting and useful, and I'm sure other people could. So it's a little bit to do with relationships, and we all have them. How do you identify a good relationship? A good relationship, core aspects of a good relationship are, there's a list, abundance, on this website, but core aspects, good relationship, my summary of that: freedom, respect, value. Bad relationships, core characteristics of bad relationships: control, inequality, and harm. I think that seems reasonable. I would challenge anybody to dispute some of those key aspects, especially in personal, intimate relationships. I mean, I'm sure that, if you're a prison guard, well, even so, So, good relationship: freedom, respect, value, and acceptance. Well, I've chucked acceptance on the end. I'll take it off. Freedom, respect, value. Control, inequality, suffering. So why are there different types of relationships? Potentially because it could be an abusive relationship. So, abusive relationships. What is abuse in relationships? The common denominator of all abuse is about control. There are separate aspects of abuse, such as psychological, physical, sexual, financial, and emotional. But if we sort of pare them down to physical and non-physical, all abuse is about control. And domestic abuse is not about violence, it's about control. And if you notice that someone seems to be controlled or extremely manipulated in all areas of their life, it could be a sign that they are being abused. There may be control over money, possessions, access to family, friends, and even their own children. Things like physical abuse may be objectively verifiable because there could be physical evidence. Psychological, emotional abuse may not have tangible or directly indicative signs. And on their own, any of these indicators may not be related to abuse. However, a cluster of signs in both people in a relationship may reveal a strong indication of an abuser and victim. So here are some changes, or here are some observations that can indicate abuse of someone you know. So, again, there's a huge list of stuff. I have managed to condense those to 4 things. Primarily, it involves change. So the first one, change in appearance. This could be the way they dress, physical changes to their body, which could include signs of injury or illness or neglect. Change to routine. So, negative changes to routine. So withdrawing from family, friends, social or work situations. Changes to regular leisure or social activities. Changes to sleep. Negative changes to diet. And isolation. Change to character. So becoming more self-critical, more stressed, and having an overall negative mood or negative effect from change psychologically. Number 4, becoming passive in values, opinions, decisions. So those are 4 things that could be indicators, and it still isn't clear cut, and by themselves these observations do not qualify as signs of abuse, but there are more. So once you've got to this stage and you think, actually, yes, those seem apparent, you could also look for signs of distress, tearfulness, even anger, signs of helplessness, hopelessness, or despair, symptoms of depression, suicidal ideations, the development of drug or alcohol problems, and these symptoms may be due to other conditions or factors, but they are typical of domestic abuse victims. Might not be obvious because domestic abuse is about controlling somebody's mind and emotions as much as hurting their body. Being abused can leave you scared and confused. It can be hard for you for you to see your partner's actions for what they really are. Usually physical abuse isn't what comes first. Abuse creeps up slowly. I put down here an odd excuse there. It's all about control. So that's a brief summary. However, it's not that simple, because what makes it extra confusing is victims of abuse will often, not necessarily, but will often not realise that they are being abused, and therefore they do not report or they underplay abuse that they experience. They blame themselves for any failings, such as the changes previously mentioned, the deterioration, and therefore they can also come to believe that they deserve the abusive behaviours. They try to understand the abuser and make excuses for the abusive behaviour. Okay, and ironically, the abuser will actually feel abused themselves when their partners simply disagree with them, or if their partner does something that they do not like. Therefore, abusers will often label their partner's behaviour as abusive. They are incapable of understanding a victim's perspective or the victim's perspective. The abuser is often self-righteous about their own behaviours and views, lacks sympathy towards the victim. So therefore, as a product of that, I guess, the abuser will attribute extremely negative interpretation to all of their partner's behaviours, whether they are positive, neutral, or negative. So they will claim that whatever that person is doing is manipulative, deceptive, selfish, aggressive. They will pathologise their partners, not apologise to them. Which means they attribute victims' behaviours to a personality disorder or an emotional disorder or just general incompetence. And they will use negative labels when speaking to their partner or about their partner. So they will call their partner irrational, hysterical, lazy, unreliable, etc., etc. And if that wasn't confusing enough, abusers often use gaslighting, which I'd never heard of until quite recently, but turns out I knew about it in a roundabout sort of way. So gaslighting the victim is often convinced that they are actually going mad or losing their mind, and this exacerbates self-doubt in victims, whilst fueling a self-righteousness of abusers. And to put the cherry on the cake, abusers will often be the first to see that there is an abuse-victim dynamic in the relationship and talk about the relationship in those terms, and actually make the accusation first that they are the victim, the other person is the abuser, which results in the pitting of the more confident controlling partner against the weaker passive partner. And the rest is history, and as they say, it's the winner who writes the history books. So there you go. A lot to take in, but if in doubt, just remember it's all about control. So that's a good yardstick to always come back to, because it's quite apparent, you know, if both parties could claim that each other is the abuser, then both parties can identify and label what they would refer to as abusive behaviour. Where do you start? Well, you go back to the basic premise that what is the physical reality of the situation, which of the two people are experiencing control, inequality and suffering, and which of the two are observably free. And that would give you a basic starting point with which to perhaps identify the abuser. What I'm saying is, who's in control? There's more to it, obviously, and I'm going to explore how we acquire knowledge in a minute. Thanks for listening.